Text me to buy.
Hello guys, this is Ty, aka the Flip Man. Today's video is bad titles and what to do about them. Out of everything, when I'm putting a deal together, the thing that worries me the most, not a seller, not a buyer, is do they have clear title? Before I go into that particular tip of this video, make sure if this is the first time you're seeing me or second, third, whatever, that you are aware, number one, I have over 100 videos right here on YouTube that you can take advantage of free. Everything you need to know about this business. I call that the free and slow way. If you want to fast forward things with a coach, then I do have a paid option at my website, junkers101.com, where you can get a step-by-step course along with me actually coaching you through your transactions. But on with the tip, bad titles and what to do about them. All transactions obviously start with you and a seller negotiating a deal. Once that's in place, a title search has to be ran at some point. It's different in different states, but for the most part, that works the same. And whether you run it before you find a buyer or after, that will depend on, which I advise students a lot of times to wait on a buyer before you run it. A little bit of risk of wasting people's time, but I understand resources are not available because if you've never dealt with a title company, most won't run a title without you paying them up front, and that can range anywhere from $150 to maybe $300, just depending on where you are. But once you have a relationship with them, they'll just start to run them without that. But starting out, I suggest that you wait on a buyer. But if you can afford it, go ahead and do it, because at least you'll know what you're dealing with. But what are you looking for when a title is ran, which is more for the security of the buyer, and in essence because they want title insurance with the purchase of the property. But what's being looked for is that, number one, does that person own the actual property? I'll get into that in a little more detail in the story of an experience that I had that cost me 13 grand. But the other thing is what mortgages, liens, or taxes on the property. Do they have an existing mortgage there? They may be aware of it, but then sometimes they don't know. Most people know they have a mortgage because they had to sign for it, but sometimes they don't know because of how they may have acquired the property or whatever. But are there any liens on the property and unpaid taxes? Okay, probably the biggest issue let me explain that a little more. Liens, mortgages, taxes, all of that can be in place on a property as long as it's less than the contract price that you need to make it work for you. Example, property, you may have negotiated a deal, and you had a contract for $50,000. It may be worth $120, ARV. And so as long as the mortgage or unpaid taxes or lien, any of the three or one or two, or it doesn't matter, as long as that total amount is less than that 50,000, this example will say if they total 35 grand, then, the seller, instead of them walking away with $50,000, they'll walk away with around $15,000. Now, if it's a situation where mortgages, taxes, or liens, or whatever is owed there, we'll just say $65,000, but $50,000 is the number that you need to make it work for you as far as a deal. No deal, unless the seller is willing to come to the table with 15 grand. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. So that's a deal breaker. Once that information, and sometimes people just don't know that something has been attached to their name. Now another thing that can be done is that even though there are liens there are unpaid taxes, even a mortgage, which you can get into a short sale situation, those amounts can be negotiated down. But that's an additional work in which you can follow up and move on to the next deal and just keep it in mind, just work on it. But it is left up to you to try to work on a lot of these things. I'll get into that in a moment also. So that can be a deal breaker. But again, as long as those liens, taxes, or mortgage, or any of the three are there and they're less than the amount that you need to make the deal work, you're fine. As long as the seller, which sometimes they don't know, understands that those amounts will come out of their proceeds because that's money that they owe. So it's not on you to pay it, but again, anything can be negotiated. Okay, so just depending on how smoking of a deal is, you know, your buyer may be willing to participate in some of that. Who knows? But again, in most cases, sellers know that those unpaid items have to come out of their money, out of the funds that they're due at closing. The biggest issue that I normally have in my market is air property, meaning that a property was, well, and I'll explain it to you, but meaning that a person owned a property, normally a parent, and they left it to their children. It's just automatically conveyed in most cases to their children if they didn't have a will, a probated will, which means that it was recorded before they passed. Now, you can go through probate to get this all done or whatever, but a lot of people don't go through that process. Give you an example. You may have 4 kids that were left a property, but a will wasn't in place. So they all have equal ownership of their property in most cases, which means, number one, they have to all agree to sell it. Number two, they all have to agree to sell it at a price that obviously is going to work for you as a wholesaler. Very difficult to do in a lot of situations. Very difficult to do in a lot of. The more kids, the more people that have to make that decision, the more difficult it's going to be. It is really just that simple. If there's a will left in place, then in the way it works here in Alabama, maybe a little different in other states, then you have an executor of the estate. It may be 20 kids, but that executor at the end of the day will make that final decision. That's the great thing about having a will and just business handling your business. We're all going to die, or whatever little items we own or assets that we own or a lot of assets, it still needs to be identified who gets what. So air property is what scares me more than anything, because normally you have to get more than one individual to agree. I'll give you a quick story here. I had a property, a smoking deal. I was going to make 13 grand on it. And we're sitting there closing, and the closing agent comes to the closing table. There was a mother and 2 daughters there. They were ready, prepared to sign everything. For some reason, the mother, when the father passed, the mother, they didn't have the right type of deed, so the mother only owned 50% of it, and the kids owned the other 50%. I forget what is titled or whatever, it's some legal term, but anyway, so I think it's called right of survivorship. They didn't have the correct type of deed where the mother automatically gets 100% of the property after the father died. In this situation, she only had 50% and the kids shared the other 50%. So we're sitting at closing. So I'm thinking these are only people involved. So when the closing agent comes to the table, he's like, okay, Tyrone, you're here. But where is Jim, John, and Michael? I'm just making up these names, but it was like 3 other people that needed to be there, which were their brothers. And guess what they said? Oh, we don't talk to them. When they said that, I grabbed my folder, because number one, I knew that closing was not going to happen that day or no day in the future. Say, we don't even know how to reach 2 of them. We haven't talked to them in over 15 years. Can't even imagine that, but over 15 years. Didn't even know how to find them. That dead deal breaker. It was over. 13 big ones down the drain because someone didn't handle their business. So it happened. Sitting right at the closing, that was my fault. I normally don't let it get that far before all this stuff is determined. I'm not even sure what brain freeze somewhere. I normally don't get that far and tease myself up. But 13 big ones was down the drain because business wasn't handled, even on my end, because like I said, I don't even get that far. I normally know all this stuff and have talked to the title company before we get there. So, but lesson learned. A rookie mistake, even though I had been in the business a while, rookie mistake. So, but that's my fear, is air property when it comes to titles in most situations. So, but in most cases you can handle, and the title company will give you instructions on on what needs to be done, which they'll do pretty much all of it cleared up. But I'm the type that if it's a situation where it's a local lien and we can get a payoff, because they'll drag their feet to title, because you're not the only deal that they're working on. So I'll actually call them and negotiate it myself, get permission from the seller to do it to speed things up. It's all about speed when you're a wholesaler. So, you want to be proactive in what you can possibly do within legal rights to help the title company get some of this stuff cleared up. It may be as simple going back to the seller to speed it up. Because as I said, the title, they have more than your deal that they're working on. So you can help them out a lot by being proactive. But this video hopefully helps. As I said, titles, at the end of the day, you have your buy and sell in place, but if you don't have a clear title, you don't have anything. And you hear people say, well, I want to do a quick claim deed. Maybe you want to do something on the back of a car. Business is not done like that. It's not done like that. So, but I hope this helps. And again, take advantage of the 100+ videos that I have here on YouTube. Just find my channel, Teach Me Flipping. And also you can take advantage of the step-by-step course and the one-on-one coaching at junkers101.com. You can call or text me at 205-492-3425.